It's Conor here in Circle Equestre. We've got Balmes, Diagonal, streets of Barcelona here behind. Summer in Barcelona, 30 degrees outside, but here in nice air-conditioned, cool. And I want to talk about story. I get asked a huge amount to run workshops on story, on telling great stories. And essentially at the core of any good story are two things. One, a character, a person who wants something, and second, conflict, something that's in the way, an obstacle. And back in the early days of Superman, Superman had so much power in the 1950s that the story wasn't actually interesting, because Superman back in the original comic version was so strong, had so many powers, that anything he wanted easily he could achieve. And the only time that Superman started to become an interesting story is when the authors of Superman started making him weaker and weaker, and actually to have an Achilles heel, the Kryptonite and Lois Lane. And it was only when Superman became weak enough that actually there were obstacles that were big enough to force him not to just go straight through them, but have to work a way to get to his objective, that he became interesting for stories. And I think the same is for humans. If a business has an objective and they have the resources to get to that objective, it doesn't make for an interesting story. If a person has an objective and has all the resources to get to that objective, it doesn't make for an interesting story. In your life, if your purpose and your dreams and your projects, you know how to get them, you have the resources in your hands to get them, that doesn't make for an interesting story or an interesting life. It's only where your goals are greater than your current level of resourcefulness, that the obstacles that you are going to face are bigger than you are able to face now, that it's going to make for an interesting story. So I think in order to tell stories in video, you got to find big challenges that there's a chance that you won't be able to achieve. And in order to live a life that is worthy of story, you need to set goals for yourself that are bigger than the version of you today would be able to achieve. And I think when we invite a motivational speaker to come into ESA to give a speech, or come into a conference, give a speech about motivation, it's the transformation they had to go through in becoming stronger so that they could achieve the goal that they had set themselves. That's what motivates us. It's not the top of Everest that is motivational. It's the changes in the person, how they grew stronger, how they grew more capable of working with a team, how they found the money, the resources, the support to be able to achieve it. Those are the things that make the thing an interesting story. So to have interesting stories, you need to set goals and have projects that the version of you today would not be able to achieve, but you're going to have to grow as a person, increase the access you have to resources in order to achieve that goal. And that way you'll tell great stories. And in speeches, if you look back into the past, what are the goals that you set for yourself that forced you to grow as a person? When I first set up my first business as an entrepreneur, I had no idea of how little I knew about what it would take to be a successful entrepreneur. Now, 16 years later, so much of what I have learned, I learned through necessity to overcome the challenges. I learned to be able to sell, I learned to be able to recruit, I learned to be able to organize the operations of a business. But I could only learn those by having got on the path to setting up a business. And on that path, I've had some disasters. I've had a business go bankrupt. And I can guarantee in that year, 2009, I learned far more about business, about entrepreneurship, about me as a human being, about what life is, about how we handle difficulty than in any other 12-month period of my life. And while I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, I also would not wish you a life where you never overcame challenge, where you never were faced to hit a wall and you had to become stronger and bigger and find more support to get over that wall. Because essentially, that's what makes a great life. Doing hard things, overcoming things that today you don't know how you're going to overcome. So do difficult things. It's how you grow as a person. And hope you enjoy this video. I hope it inspires you to stop, and just as this summer in the Northern Hemisphere comes through, you take some time to think about your goals for the next year, the goals for the next 5, 10 years. What are the goals that are big enough that right now you don't know how you're going to be able to achieve them? And I love the words of Alden Mills. If you have a dream and you know all the steps required to achieve that dream, you don't have a dream. You have a plan. A dream is something you don't currently know all the steps for how you will achieve it. You're going to have to go out into the world and pursue that dream, and in that pursuit, learn the things that you will need and find the extra resources that you will need. So good luck on that. Have a great one. This is Conor from Barcelona. July, 30 degrees outside, gonna go have some lunch. Thank you for your likes, your comments, your subscribes. Would love comments down below. What questions do you have? Have a great one. Speak soon.